Welcome back. With us is Muriel Williman of City of Durham Solid Waste Management. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much.
You know, I read something about recycling, and they were doing it way back like thousands of years ago, it seems like. The Romans used to do it.
It's practically biblical. I mean, there is, we're urged to, wage peace by turning our swords into plowshares. So honestly, people have been recycling for a long, long time. It's hard to get those materials out of the ground. It's hard to take, rock and make it into metal and melt it down. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of expertise. It takes a lot of, ingenuity and manpower and, economics poured into that. So across the board, if you're recycling material, it's actually going to cost less using recycled content than getting that virgin material. We don't have iron ore like we used to. Bauxite ore is where aluminum comes from. We used to have stores of bauxite ore in Arkansas and Oklahoma and other southern states. It's gone. We've dug it all up. Now we're getting our aluminum from Latin America, from Jamaica, and it's getting harder and harder to pull out. It's a lot easier to recycle an aluminum can, which doesn't change its form at all. You melt it down and that aluminum holds its recyclability over and over again for our airplanes, for our bicycles, for the components in these cameras, all that stuff. It's really expensive. It's getting more and more expensive to pull those natural resources out of the earth, and if we're just burying them, that's a dead end. If we're recycling them, we can go on and on. It's more like a natural cycle where everything is food for something else. The recyclable materials are food for the recycling industry for products that we use every day.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That our natural resources itself are being eaten up. Not only was a lifestyle change, but also industry had to create, a whole industry had to be created from scratch. What am I going to do with this plastic bottle or this glass? Now, how's that been as you look over the past 20, 30 years to see the industries where it was and where we are today?
There has been some really significant changes. In the early days of recycling, we were separating our own recyclables by material type. Plastics are kind of the baby of the recycling commodities. Aluminum's been around for a long time, steel long before that, as we mentioned. Paper also has been recycled for a long time. Fabrics have been recycled, but plastic is still the newbie, right? And as plastic manufacturing has changed over the years, so has the ability of companies to take different types of plastic and make it into new products. That's really where the value is. If they can't make a product that they can then sell to the marketplace, it has no value. So the commodity is really dependent on the demand, like all commodity markets. Recycling responds to that financial market. Back in the day, when we were separating all of the materials by material type, we were able to sell directly to market. I've lived in Durham for many years, and there was actually a paper stock market right in Durham. You could go to the parking lot of a grocery store and sell your aluminum cans to Reynolds Aluminum. Reynolds doesn't even exist anymore. It's been bought out multiple times. It's a subsidiary of much larger companies, and that consolidation in the marketplace has happened across commodities. Aluminums have consolidated, glass has consolidated. There's really only one glass recycling market left in North Carolina, when back in the day there was one here in Raleigh. It was called the Container Recycling Alliance, and they're gone. They were bought up, and now there are only a few of these consolidated markets. With that consolidation, it became harder and harder for municipalities to really market their separate materials. So now we mix materials together and send it to a material recovery facility, and they separate the commodities by material type that come in from all municipalities all around, so they can really trade with volume. So they get the volume value of the material, plus the ability to separate the commodities by material types means that these bales are relatively clean, because the manufacturers want to have uniform supply. Like anybody, if you're making any kind of product, you want to have a uniform raw material supply to make something that looks the same across the board. People don't really like a lot of variation in their products. You don't want to see swirls in your glass. You don't want to see imperfections in your bottles. You don't want to see thin spots in your carpet. stuff like that.
Right.
So the cleanliness of the bale is also another way that the MRF high ends the commodity and then they sell it on the marketplace. We have a lot of domestic markets, especially here in the Southeast, for these commodities, but we can also sell internationally, right? There's lots of overseas markets for these commodities as well.
I remember going to a recycle facility, but this was decades ago, and you had people picking things out on a conveyor belt. How do you today prevent contamination by people who maybe don't pay quite as close attention to what they put in?
It's a massive problem,
I bet it
to be
is.
honest, especially since COVID when people were staying at home and, that maybe they're getting more takeout materials and, more cardboard and packaging is coming into the home. And I mean, recycling has really taken a hit over the years with a number of different things, but contamination is probably the #1 enemy. And all that is when people put materials in their recycling container that can't be sold into the marketplace, that don't have a recycling market. Anything that's not a bottle, can, jar, jug, tub, paper, cardboard. If it's not that, then it doesn't go in. But people think, well, I know that I can recycle my textiles. I know that I can recycle my electronics. Well, I don't know what to do with this mop or these crutches or this sweater, so I'm going to throw it in the bin. Or they think, well, I'm going to bag it up nice and tidy. They mean well, but that bag is considered contamination. When you mentioned the conveyor belt, at the MRF they might have a combination of people that are hand sorting, mechanical sorting with ultraviolet light or infrared light that separates different types of plastic. They'll use magnets, they'll use electrical sparks to cause aluminum to pop out. So there's a combination of mechanical and human sorting that goes through. Glass is heavy, so the gravity makes it drop down, to separate the recyclable commodities. Everything that's left is contamination. That has to be landfilled. So when people put material in their blue cart that doesn't belong there, #1, it goes into the truck, so then you're hauling extra material and using all that transportation, the collection time, the fuel, the driver time to go to the MRF, so you're wasting those resources to go to the MRF where it has to be hand separated. That's taking up their time and resources, where then it gets landfilled, which was what we were trying to prevent to begin with. So contamination is a huge problem. The other problem with contamination, I think, is a little less direct. It's more esoteric, where people hear that 30% of what they put in their recycling bin is not recycled, so they think that recycling doesn't work. And that really has taken a toll on recycling. The bad press that recycling has gotten, where people say only 9% of plastics can be recycled, it's like, well, there's hundreds of different types of plastics in our marketplace. Really, as a baby, plastic bottles and tubs are highly recyclable. Your laundry detergent bottle, your soda bottle, your condiment bottle, your shampoo bottle, your yogurt tub, your margarine tub, anything that you can put a lid on that's made of plastic can go in the recycling container. But then you've got packets, you've got film, you've got foam, you've got plastic bags that can tangle up the gears at the MRF and cause real problems. It can cause damage, can even cause injury to the people that are there. So contamination is a huge problem, and it also has cast a shadow on whether recycling works or not. It downgrades the quality of the materials so that the commodities they're not worth as much, so the MRF isn't making as much money. It really has an exponential negative effect on recycling.
Well, that's the thing with recycling, though, wasn't it? It started off that way, where so many people were against it, and there were a lot of myths versus truth. So it was surprising to see, and I think you were referencing the New York Times article that had that kind of breakout. But you can have fun with stats, and they're not representative of reality.
Often they're really not. It depends. You have to view the source, and you have to think of what their motivation might be. Some people look at recycling as what you put at the curb. I think of recycling as what you can make out of it. So it's both ends of the spectrum, right? You have to follow it all the way from soup to nuts to see if recycling is truly working.
Well, stop putting stuff in that recycle bin that you're not supposed to.
Bottles, cans, jugs, jars, paper, cardboard. It's
See,
simple.
it seems so easy when you do that.
It's so simple. But back to contamination, the city of Durham has really been struggling with contamination problems. We learned recently that our contamination rate is more than 30%. So more than 30% of what Durham City residents are putting into their curbside blue bins is not recyclable, or they're bagging it. Those bags are a no-no. Please keep your recycling loose and free, nice and clean, so that it can go into the truck loose, it can go to the MRF loose, they can separate out the materials by commodity type, and we can get the most money for our commodities.
You want that? In fact, thank you so much for, I mean, I learned a lot. I
My
really
pleasure.
did. Thank you. In fact, coming up in the next segment, maybe this next gentleman might have an idea that is like in the future kind of stuff that might help with that contamination.
We'll see.
We'll come back and talk about it. Stay with us.